this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, the students of Class 3E begin to prepare for their midterms, and basically they're preparing for their midterms, and then President Gakuho decides to pay them a visit. So basically the episode starts up with Korosensei basically using his powers to give everybody one-on-one tutoring, which is the coolest thing ever. So so he has multiple doppelgangers, one for each student, and he's giving each of them personalized tutoring through those doppelgangers, and basically he takes multitasking to the max, and each individual doppelganger is just dedicated to one specific student, and each one has a different is key with tackling a different subject for each individual student. So basically, long story short, is he just gives everybody one-on-one tutoring and tackles each of their individual subjects. And Nagisa points out that while he is definitely going all out to help them with midterms, he also points out that it seems like Korosensei has gotten a lot faster, and wonder if this is in preparation for destroying the Earth. And Nagisa even remarks that he feels like Korosensei might be stretching himself a little thin. To which point Korosensei responds that he actually has a doppelganger on standby, basically on R&R. So he doesn't. So in short, he has a doppelganger outside relaxing, so he doesn't get tired. Which Nagisa points out seems like it's causing more harm than good, but he doesn't really have any objections to it other than that. But yeah. In any case, after this little one-on-one tutoring session with the entire class, Korosensei goes into the teacher's lounge and discovers that Gakuho is there already talking to Karasuma and Helvik. So, and sure enough, as soon as he sees the principal, he begins groveling at the principal's feet, since the principal is kind of his boss, and he even goes so far as to ask him for a pay raise. Meanwhile, Nagisa sees what's going on and proceeds to eavesdrop on the conversation. And basically, Gakuho has one reason for being there. He wants to restore things to the status quo. So he starts off by acting all kind of friendly to the staff of in charge of Class 3E, and even goes so far as to greet Korosensei personally. But as soon as the conversation shifts toward the status quo, his whole demeanor changes. So he responds that he basically, the way he describes it as like the worker ant analogy. Basically there's ants. 20% will be overachievers, 20% will be underachievers, and 60% will be somewhere in the middle. His philosophy is that if all 95% of them are workers and the 5% are slackers, that'll cause the slackers to diminish their full potential and basically make the other 95% work harder. And then after pointing that out, he also brings up the incident with Nagisa, pointing out that Nagisa basically told his betters to shove it, although it's dramatized a little bit in Gakuho's words, and points out that Korosensei's role as the teacher of Class 3E is to maintain the status quo and make sure that the students adhere their quote unquote role as E-class. Basically, their sole job is to make sure that the rest of the group works better, while also making sure they stay there to provide motivation. And Korosensei isn't exactly happy with this assessment, but he decides to hold his tongue. At which point Gakuho walks out of the room and sees that Nagisa has been eavesdropping the whole time, or at the very least he sees Nagisa in the hallway and decides to greet him, saying that he's looking forward to his midterms. But basically Nagisa, after hearing all that, realizes that he went from being a cocky assassin to just another E-class student. But Korosensei takes what Gakuho said to heart and decides to go overtime with the whole one-on-one tutoring that I told you guys about earlier. Basically, what he does is he quadruples the amount of doppelgangers that he was doing, so everybody has 4-on-1 tutoring now. And sure enough, this is causing him to become a little bit sloppy, and he starts to wear himself out. So, and eventually, and by the time he's done with the tutoring session, he's completely dead on his feet. Well, or tentacles, but in any case, he's completely dead on his feet, or whatever he has. And the students note this, and some even ask him why he's working so hard. And Korosensei responds that the only reason he wants them to actually that he's working so hard is so that they actually succeed on their midterms, and because basically his idea is that if they do well on their midterms and are appreciative of the fact that he works so hard to help them with their midterms, they'll stop trying to assassinate him, and that makes him very happy, although his dedication to the students is first and foremost in his mind. But the students retort back that all they really need to do is kill him, though, since they're not really world-class academics and don't really have such high opinions of themselves, and point out that the money could definitely help them pave the way for a better future. Korosensei, after hearing that, in conjunction with what he got from President Gakuho, isn't exactly in the best of moods anymore, and orders all of the students as well as Irina and Kurasama outside so that he can give everybody a lecture. And sure enough, the lecture is this: that first he asks Irina and Kurasama about assassination and how their methodology, and asks them if Plan A ever works, and they both respond no. At which point Korosensei uses that to launch into his spiel, which is that anybody who can't wield a second blade, metaphorically or otherwise, doesn't deserve to be assassins, and even points out that there's also the very real chance that he may be assassinated by somebody that isn't part of Class E. There's a very good chance that could happen, and he makes sure the students know that. There's a possibility that he's either Class E or he decides to leave, or whatever. Either way, their chance goes away, and now they have no backups. And points out that they shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket, and yet that's exactly what they're doing. And as he's going on in this speech, he starts spinning around in circles to making a giant tornado in the sky that can even be seen from the main campus. It is big, but basically what he does is that this is just a flashy way for him to prune the entire field. But basically, he uses it also as a point to that he can flat destroy the entire Earth if he wanted to. And case in point, he was able to flatten a single corner of it with relative ease. And so what's really stopping him from just going off and destroying the world by himself? And sure enough, after he says all this, he points out that from now on he wants them to actually try and succeed and be the best they can be, and points out that if one person places in the top 50, they have a chance of getting back into their classes with teacher approval, and then lets the shoe drop. He wants them all to place in the top 50, or he's walking out of the class and never coming back. So basically, he gives them an ultimatum. Do well on the midterms, or I am leaving and never coming back. So with that, the students decide, you know what, maybe we should take Korosensei seriously and then just buckle down and prepare for their midterms. And sure enough, they go to the midterms, which they visualize as scary monsters that they need to overcome one by one, which is kind of an interesting little analogy for assassination and stuff. It's kind of cute, but basically Korosensei has full what's the word? Basically Korosensei has full confidence that students are going to be able to do it, as he points out to Irina when she attempts to assassinate him, and then also on top of that asks him if he meant what he said. And he points out that yes, he did, and that regardless of where they were before, they will be able to succeed now that he's their teacher, regardless of what the school throws at them. And sure enough, the Class E, which has for midterms been moved to the main campus so they can actually take their classes in a proper environment, I think is what the goal is. It's basically an escape for them, as Nagisa says, but basically the reason they're there is so that classes A through D can see them and basically watch them fail. But that doesn't wind up happening. As it turns out, Korosensei, because we've established that Korosensei is a damn good teacher, but he does a really good job of narrowing in on what is causing a student trouble and helping them overcome it accordingly. And sure enough, Class E is basically just breezing through their midterms like they're nothing, until they get to a very specific problem. So, as it turns out, there was new material on the midterms that were never actually covered in class, and sure enough, Class E never actually covered it and had no knowledge of that this was going to be on the test. And naturally, when the students get their midterms back, Kurasama gives the people over at the main campus an earful, pointing out that he feels like the tests were rigged and that it's a little bit unfair that Class E had to be subjected to this and have to basically pull information out of their ass. And they basically had to pull information out of their ass for something that they never actually went over. But then the guy on the other end remarks that no, this was actually covered. As it turns out, President Gakuho himself actually taught classes A through D this new material, and basically did it as a way to keep Class E in line. So, and Kurasama is a bit shocked at this, realizing that there's nothing that Gakuho isn't going to do to basically maintain his reputation and his status quo. And he also becomes concerned because now almost none of the students from his class actually placed in the top 50, and which means Korosensei is most likely going to leave. And during class, Korosensei refuses to face his students, mainly because, as he points out, he feels personally responsible for the fact that they failed, and takes full responsibility because he wasn't able to help them as their teacher. However, as it turns out, Karma of all people actually passed. He got perfect scores and everything, pointing out that the linchpin in the test didn't throw him at all, and points out that the whole reason that Korosensei's methods actually worked, and he has no real reason to leave. And Karma remarks that he has no real reason to leave either. He feels like he's at home and that he's never going to actually leave because, well, basically the rest of the curriculum doesn't have assassination on it. So he's basically staying in E class so that he can continue to learn assassination techniques and hopefully one day take down Korosensei. And asks Korosensei where he thinks he belongs. And this actually gives Korosensei the motivation he needs to actually face his class again and decide to try even harder to teach them, pointing out that he's going to double his efforts for midterms and that nobody puts Class E in a corner. So, yeah, basically, Principal Gakuho rigged the midterms to keep Class E in its place, but Class E's methods of learning actually did work. Korosensei's methods do work. It's just that Gakuho is just so determined to keep the status quo intact that he will willingly withhold information from Class E and withhold a part of the curriculum just so that they will fail and fall flat on their face. And that is a big part of this. The Gakuho is not a good guy. He wants to keep Class E in its place so that he can keep the rest of the student body growing and achieving perfection. So basically he's just trying to weed out the weak and make the rest of the school stronger as a result. And he will go to any lengths to do that. That's what this episode is to establish. No matter how hard Class E is going to work, they still have to fight a rigged curriculum to basically get back into their regular classes and finally show the world what they're capable of. And it's an uphill battle because the president doesn't like them very much, and he wants to make sure that they remain failures forever, so that they have to accept that role. And Korosensei isn't going to allow that. So, yeah, that's my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!